All right. Okay. Remember that stuff we did in Chapter 3 called completing the square? Welcome back. We're doing it again. So what I want to quickly tell you is this. Okay, I've shown you different ways to solve quadratic equations. Last day we did the idea of factoring, right? And then before that we used the graphing calculator to find the solution. Now sometimes, let me tell you, when you use your graphing calculator, you're not going to get exact answers. You're going to get decimals that you have to round. That's no good, because in math we like to have things that are really exact. So today I'm going to show you ways to actually find the exact answer. And one of the ways I want to show you first of all is by using what you've learned in the past. Do you remember the standard form, which was y equals to ax squared plus bx plus c? And you remember how I asked you to change that into vertex form? By the way, what's vertex form again? Y equals to x minus p squared plus q. And the method we used to get there was something called completing the square. So I want to do the same thing with you today. And once you've completed the square, then we're going to extend it and solve for x. And that's it. All right? So let's see if we can do example number 1a together. Remember how we complete the square? I ask you to focus in on the x squared term and the x term. I'll ask you to leave some space. Okay. And then let's see what number I have to add in to make this a perfect square. Any suggestions, dear friends? That's right. Half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. And then to balance it out, I will also take away 25. Good. Please then continue to try to complete the square. The 3-term trinomial simplifies into what? X take away 5 all squared. Excellent. And then let's combine the 16 and 25 together. 16 minus 25 is -9. And this equals to 0. So far, so good, right? Just a quick review. Here's the new stuff for today. I want you to now go ahead and solve for x. So let's see if we can solve for x by isolating x. What's the first thing I should move to the other side? Yeah, move the -9 over. Good. So we have x minus 5 all squared equals to 9. And just continue the process of trying to isolate this x. What should I do next? Square root, I heard people whisper. Nice. Take the square root. You'll just get x minus 5, and what's the square root of 3? Did I miss anything? Ah, thank you. Plus or minus. Okay, remember when you're taking the square root off of both sides, you actually have a positive answer and a negative answer. So plus or minus. Okay, now let's go ahead and continue to solve. We'll isolate x by moving the -5. So 5 plus or minus 3. And that just means there are two answers, right? What's 5 plus 3? 8. What's 5 minus 3? 2. There's your answer. Now, this method of solving is called solving by completing the square. You might be thinking right now, Mr. Lee, why would you do that? The numbers are nice. You could have just factored this equation from last day. Remember factoring? Two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to -10. What would those be? Well, how about 8 and 2? Remember from last day? You solve, you're like, oh, well, that's 8, that's 2. Mr. Lee, what a fool. Why would you do this? You're right. For this one, you could have solved it by factoring. But I thought I'd start with a simple example so you understand the concept. And now I'm going to ask you to use this same concept to try to solve the next one. Because guess what? 1b, you cannot factor. Okay, so let's try 1b together. Help me out, somebody. What should I do first if I want to try to complete the square? 4. Right, let's take out the 4. So 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared. 48 divided by 4 is 12. And then I will not divide 4 with the 7. I'm going to leave that as is. Okay, and then once again, you have to tell me what's the magic number that goes inside the bracket? Good. Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. And then minus 36? No. Oh, no. That's right. Don't forget, times it by the number outside. 4 times 36 is 144. So let's subtract out 144. Yes, bring out your erasers. Okay. Be careful there. Okay. Don't forget the 4 in front makes a difference. So let's continue on trying to simplify this. We'll simplify that trinomial. That will become x plus what number all squared? Yep, half of 12 is 6. We'll combine the negative 7 and minus 144. That's negative 151. And there you have it. You've completed the square, which would have been okay for Chapter 3. But now you're in Chapter 4, and we need to do more. So next, now, go ahead and solve for x. Okay? And how we solve for x? What's the first thing I should do? What should I do?
Does it move everything to one side and then root it?
Yeah, move everything to one side. So what should I move first to the other side?
151.
Okay, 151. All right, let's go ahead and do that. Now, what else do I do if I want to try to isolate x? What's next? Divide by 4, someone says. Someone's correct. Now what?
Square it.
Square root it. And when you square root it, what must you be aware of? Plus and minus. Plus and minus. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once you get to this stage, I'm just going to ask you to see if you can simplify that square root just a little bit. Can you see how there's a 4 in the denominator? Mm-hmm. Well, remember I can split up the square root into 2 different square roots, a root 151 and a root 4.
Oh, man.
What's root 4?
2.
Yeah. I know it's 2, that's why I did this. If it wasn't a nice number, you can leave it as that ugly fraction. Not a problem. But my suggestion is, let's see if we can simplify this. So this becomes now the square root of 151 over 2. Yeah, don't forget plus and minus. And then what's your last step?
-6.
Just minus 6. So x equals to plus or minus root 151 over 2. And then minus 6. And ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, because I want an exact answer, you are done. So don't go to your calculator and punch out a decimal and round, because I'm not asking for a rounded answer. I want an exact answer. There you go. Exact answer.
So you're doing a -6 on that?
So you don't even need to minus the 6. You just write it like that and you're fine. So let me write it over here. X equals to plus or minus root 151 over 2 minus 6. And this is your complete answer. Your textbook also has answers like this in this section. Okay, so you'll see the square root, you'll see the plus minus, and a number attached at this side.
But for the other one, you solve for plus and minus.
Yeah, because I could, right?
Oh.
So Rebecca, for the other one here, I could solve, right? Root 9 I can solve, so I did. Root 151 I can't solve, so I won't. Okay? All right, you try part C on your own, please. But before I let you try, let me help you at least with the first part. Let's factor out the 1/2 together. And now what's this next thing? What's 3 divided by 1/2?
6.
Good, negative 6x. All right, dear friends, figure it out on your own. Go. Okay, for those of you having trouble still, let me try to solve some of this for you. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Be careful, we don't want to just minus 9, but 9 over 2. Okay, remember, take the half multiplied by 9. We will continue on by trying to complete the square, so this becomes x minus 3 all squared. What's 1 minus 9 over 2? I think that's negative 7 over 2. Okay. Once you have it in this format, go ahead and try to solve for x. So once again, I'm going to ask you to isolate x. So 1/2 and x minus 3 all squared is the same. Move the negative 7 over 2 to the right-hand side. Okay, now I want to get rid of that 1/2 on the left side. So what's 7/2 divided by 1/2? 14 over 2, which simplifies to? 7. Good. 7 over 2 divided by 1/2 is just 7, or 14 over 2. What's next? Square root. Don't forget, Don't forget,
Plus or minus.
plus or minus. Solve for x. 3 plus or minus root 7. Done. Okay? This is what they call the exact answer. Okay? Don't then go to your graphing calculator and punch out the root. No, leave it like this. That's what they want. Okay? That's what they want when they say exact answers. The math gods. Okay. For those of you who are ready, I'd like you to take a look at number 2. Read the question, see if you can draw a picture and a sketch to help you figure this out. Okay, the length and the width of a rectangle are 7 by 5. So draw a rectangle if you can. Okay. And it says if each dimension is increased by the same amount. What does that mean? When each dimension is increased by the same amount.
Plus x.
If I were to increase something by x, sure, let's call this distance here x. And if I increase this one by the same amount, so draw something that's almost the same, that's x. What does it say then? Then it says the area of the new rectangle would be tripled. Ooh, 3 times as big. Okay, that's tripled. 3 times as big. And they want you to find the dimensions of the new rectangle. Notice it says exact dimensions, so don't round, no decimals. Okay. Help me out. How would I find an equation to represent this thing? What am I looking for, first of all? The x. So I need to find something that relates x and what else? The area. This is a rectangle, so what's the area of a rectangle equal to? Length times width. Good. Can someone describe to me a beautiful expression for the length? 7 plus, Johnson, yeah, keep going. 7 plus x. Awesome. 7 plus x. How about the width? 5 plus x. Even more awesome. What about the area, though?
105.
105?
Is it?
How'd you get that?
The area will be tripled. And then
Tripled.
your
Tripled is 3 times. Yeah, 3 times what?
Bigger.
3 times bigger. What's the area of the original blue?
35.
Yeah, 7 times 5. 3 times 7 times 5 is 105. Correct. Yay. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've got the equation. Congratulations. Now you got to solve for x. Okay. Let's do it by using our method today of completing the square. But before we do that, let's expand and simplify first. So I'm going to ask you to expand and simplify. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times x, 7x. 5 times x, 5x. X times x, x squared. My advice to you is to put the x squared term in the front. So I'm just going to rearrange things. X squared. 7x and 5x are 12x's. And then 35 minus 105. What's that? Negative 70. Excellent. And this equals to 0. Okay. Notice that my x's are on the right-hand side. Doesn't really matter if it's on the right or left. Just make sure every term is on one side. How do we solve this now using today's method? Complete the square. Solve for x. Go ahead and now try this on your own. Okay. Oh. Don't listen to me then, if you don't want to listen. Ooh, did I just say that? Don't listen to me?
Ah, you recorded it too.
What number goes inside the bracket here to help me out to make this a perfect square? 36 minus 36, okay. We'll make that into a perfect square. That's x plus 6 all squared. 70, 36, that's negative 106. Go ahead and solve for x. Now, I saw many of you do this, which was great. You moved the 106 to the other side. Okay, you took the square root. So what'd you do wrong? Yeah, good point. What'd you do wrong? Plus or minus, you got there too. Very good, very good. You went and said, okay, negative 6 plus or minus root 106. You get that? Good. You wrote down both of those answers? Bad. Okay, Yeah, we're still not done, by the way. You're right. We have to actually find length and width, because that's what I asked you for. But let me ask you, you've got actually two answers here. You've got a negative 6 plus root 106, and you also have a negative 6 minus root 106. Is there a problem with one of these answers? Yeah, look at the one on the right. Negative 6 minus something. That means your x value here is negative. I thought you wanted to increase the area. How can x be negative? Doesn't make sense. So because of the context of this question, get rid of this answer. Doesn't make sense.
Wait, why is it negative 6?
Why is it negative 6?
Yeah.
Because I need to solve for x, and this was x plus 6. To get rid of the plus 6, I move to the other side, becomes negative 6. So be careful here. You only really want to quote me one of these answers, and that one answer is the negative 6 plus root 106. Okay? By the way, just to make sure this is positive, what's root 106 close to? Well, that's close to root 100. What's root 100? 10. So negative 6 plus 10, yeah, that's 4. That's positive. That sounds okay. So now how do you go back and solve for the length and the width? Well, the length was equal to the expression 7 plus x. Well, x now is my expression negative 6 plus root 106. Can someone help me simplify that? 7 plus negative 6 plus 106. What's 7 plus negative 6? That's just 1. So your length is 1 plus root 106. Okay? And now do the same thing for the width, please. Your width is 5 plus x. So go ahead now and substitute x back in. And then what's 5 plus negative 6?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. Good. So width is equal to negative 1 plus root 106. Okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, take a moment to double check your work, please, and then we'll move on to number 3. Number 3 you've actually seen before, so you should be able to try it at least. It's very similar to what we did last day, so I'll let you try that right now, and I'm going to hand out something to you, please, okay? We've done questions like this before where I asked you to write out the equation when I give you the answer. Remember back in section 4.2 when we did the same thing? Oh yeah, right here. Right, here's the answer, you switch it around. It's the same thing. So if one of the roots is root 13, then what's one of the factors that give you root 13? It'd be x minus root 13. And if the answer was negative root 13, what's the factor that produces that? It's the opposite, so x plus. This equals to 0. I want you to actually make this a little bit nicer by actually expanding. So let's go ahead and expand and simplify. Kang Young, help me out. What's x times x? Yeah, and then x times root 13, that's just the root 13x. You have a negative. And then Kang Young, what's this next part? Root 13 times root 13, what's that? That's just 13. Positive or negative?
Negative. Negative.
Negative, good. Okay.
They cancel out, right?
Yeah, and the middle terms cancel out. Perfect, perfect.
So nice.
So nice.
Only it's like that every time.
If it was like that every time, life would be so boring. There you go. There's your answer. So we start easy, and then we get a little bit more tricky.
Wait, why did you add an x in there?
Why did I add an x in
Yeah.
where, Rebecca? Where?
In my thingy.
X squared?
No, like into the FOIL.
Oh, because I'm doing x times root 13, so that's root 13x.
No, why x?
You're trying to make an equation. You're trying to find the quadratic equation. You need x.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, B is hard. Listen up. If you did it the same way as how I solved it earlier, you'd write down something like this. X minus, and then wrote a bracket 2 minus root 5. And then x minus the bracket 2 plus root 5. Now, many of you are looking at this and you're getting scared. How do I do that? Well, you know what? It's the same way, but it gets really messy. Right? You still have to go ahead and distribute. Messy. What's an easier way?
2x?
No. The easier way is to look at this. Look back at your actual roots. Can you combine these two things together? If you were to combine them together, and I'll say combine roots instead, what's that equal to? That's just 2, because they both have a 2. And then you see how there's a minus and a plus? Guess what? That's the same thing as plus minus. Those are your roots. That's what you're telling me. X equals to 2 plus or minus root 5. Right? That's what you're telling me. Now, why is this better? Because this looks like one of the answers we got from before. Well, how do we get this? Well, guess what? We solve for x, right? Well, in this case, what do you think we want to do then? We want to try to get rid of that square root somehow and solve like for x somehow. So to get rid of that plus or minus in the square root, here's what I'd like you to do. Why don't you try to isolate that root part? By isolating the root part, what should I move over from the right side to the left side? The 2. Okay. X minus 2 equals 2 plus or minus root 5. Now, remember, I don't want a root in my original equation. So how do I get rid of a root? Not square root again. The opposite, square. Now, what happens when I square a plus or minus?
It turns into a plus.
It still turns to a plus, right? Plus times, or positive times positive is positive. Negative times negative is also positive. So that plus or minus disappears. What's root 5 all squared? That's just 5. X minus 2 all squared. I guess I'm going to expand this out. X squared minus, I believe, 4x plus 4. Is that okay? I tried to skip a step there. Maybe I shouldn't skip a step for those of you online. X minus 2, right? Distribute, distribute, FOIL. X squared minus 2x plus 4. Right? Grade 10? Grade 9? Grade 8 perhaps? Grade 7? Sure. Grade 6? Kindergarten? I don't think so. Okay, and you're almost done. Remember, I want to make this equal to 0, so I think the final thing I want you to try to do is just minus the 5, and there you go. There's your answer. Okay? Now, the next one is very similar, but a little bit more messy. So can I start you off with the next one, and I'll let you try to finish off the rest? Remember, the two roots look very, very alike. What's the difference? One has a minus, one has a plus. So we can combine them together again and just write this as 1 plus or minus root 7 over 2. Now, your goal here is try to isolate the root. Okay? So by isolating the root, what must you do first? Multiply by 2. Excellent. So let's make this 2x equals to 1 plus or minus root 7. And you're almost done isolating the roots. What's next? Minus the 1. Thank you. So 2x minus 1 equals to the plus or minus root 7. And now you're ready to square both sides. You go ahead and finish this off. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look. Do you have this as your answer? 4x squared minus 4x plus 1, 7. And then I think many of you moved the 7 over, so you got plus 6. Is that good?
Oh, whoopsie.
No? Oh, it should be minus 6. That's the mistake you made. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this answer is fine. Some of you are thinking, Mr. Lee, I see something there. I see a factor of 2 for all those. So if you wanted to make it simpler and factor out the 2, you're fine. You can leave it as 2x squared minus 2x minus 3. That's fine as well, but nonetheless, both those things will give you the exact same solutions. And remember how last time when I did a question where, remember how we graphed out the answer and the roots were the same if I were doing this or flip them around or make it fatter or make it thinner, remember? So what I'm saying to you is there are multiple answers or multiple equations that give you the same roots. Okay?
Should it be 2?
Yeah, you can put a 2 in front if you wish. Right? But then, Rebecca, you can also divide both sides by 2, and you'll still just get 2x squared minus 2x minus 3. Right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. What?
Party?
A party without numbers. Okay. I want you now to do this.
Oh, that's something good.
Okay.
I do something good for once. I mean, I joke. It's always good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. You asked for this many, many moons ago. Remember back then you said, hey, what is this quadratic formula thing and where did it come from? Here's my chance to show you where it comes from. Okay? Let's start off with the standard form. And please write this down. And notice you'll need a lot of space. Okay?
Oh.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, A, B, and C are just numbers. Okay? Gavrilo, let's do this first, okay? I want you to do this too. How do we actually complete the square using this thing? What do we do first when we complete the square? Yeah, change the vertex form. So what do I need to do? I need to factor out the A value. So the first thing I'd like us to do is let's complete the square. Okay? Complete the square to change into vertex form. Okay? To make the vertex form. Because I want to do the same steps as what we did today pretty much for all the questions. So let's factor out the A. And can someone help me out? What's inside this bracket here? AX squared divided by A is just? X squared. B divided by A? Well, that's just a fraction, B over A. X. Remember, I don't worry about the constant. I'll put it outside here, and then I'll have it equal to 0. Okay? So that's the first step of trying to complete the square. Factor out the A value. Now, what number goes inside my bracket here? How do we figure this out? We always take the coefficient of the x term, which is b over a. What do we do with that fraction, b over a? Divide by 2. Now, let's see what happens when we divide by 2. Divide by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. That's 1 over 2. And what does that simplify then? b over 2a. Good. So a half of b over a is just b over 2a. And then what do we do there, Sahil? Yeah? Square it. Good. Gotta square it now. Square it. Okay, so this is just stuff on the side, okay? Square it. So what's b over 2a all squared?
B squared over 4a squared.
Oh, good. b squared over 4a squared. Excellent. Remember, it's 4a because you're squaring the 2 as well. So the number you actually put into the bracket there is actually plus b squared over 4a squared. But we need to balance this out, don't we?
Minus b squared.
So minus b squared over 4a squared.
Uh-huh.
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 What, Emily? Don't forget, you have the a in front. So this should be times it by a. So I'm going to times it by a. I'm going to put times a up here like this. I'm serious.
Wait, times a for the whole thing?
Yeah. Just like before, right? You plugged in b squared over 4a squared, but that was inside the bracket. So you actually multiplied that by a. So to balance it out, you have to subtract that whole thing.
Do you do the... Because you're doing b squared times a over the thingy. Do you do the thing first and then times it by a?
Yeah, the thing first times by a. Okay? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep going. Now, how do we simplify this trinomial? This is a, and what does this become? X. What does it become?
Plus.
Plus, good. Plus what? Yeah, b over 2a. Good. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to say this is plus c, and I'm going to put this, now I'm going to simplify the a and the a squared. A and the a squared, that cancels out a little bit. So we have minus b squared over 4a. Okay? Equals to 0. Congratulations. This is vertex form. Not done yet. Oh. That's right. You still have space. Now, remember after vertex form what we did? In all the other questions, what do we do? After we found the vertex form, I asked you to solve for x. So now, from this step, I'm going to ask you now to solve for x. Say that again, Johnson? No. Okay, now, how do you solve for x? What do we do here first? You want to isolate x, so what should I move to the right-hand side? A? I wouldn't move that first. Yeah, let's move this b squared over 4a. Okay, let's do that. A bracket x plus b over 2a, all squared. I guess we still have a plus c. Let's move that over. So that's b squared over 4a. I don't like that c there. It's okay, but I don't want it there. Oh, let's just move that over too. Sure. Minus c. So can I just do that in the same step? Can I just erase this here and move this over there? Minus c. Why? Because I want to isolate for x.
Oh, I see.
Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Before we actually divide by a, can we actually simplify what's on the right-hand side? I don't want two things. I want to have a one fraction here. So let's see if we can quickly simplify this first. What's the denominator for c? It's just 1. What's the common denominator between 4a and 1? 4a. Good. So the b squared stays on the top. What do I need to do with the c? I need to multiply in a 4ac. Okay. It's so messy, but it will look pretty in about 2 minutes.
I do this when I'm desperate.
Okay. Now, remember, our goal is to solve for x. What should I continue to do if I want to isolate x? Divide by a. Good. X plus b over 2a all squared equals to this whole thing divided by a. Now, when I take this whole thing and divide it by a, that means I want to divide it by a. Is there a better way of writing this down? Multiply by what?
The reciprocal.
The reciprocal. Good. 1 over a. Okay, so note, I guess they say note. Dividing by a is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over a, the reciprocal. Okay. Let's simplify this a little bit, and I hope you are thinking, I've seen this before. B squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. I hope you still have some room. Your goal, once again, is to solve for x. What's next? Square root. Both sides. Don't forget. Plus or minus, yes. Okay. Now, I'm also going to do one thing here. I'm going to split up the square root into 2 parts. I'm going to split the square root with the top, and I'm also going to split up the square root in the bottom. And I hope you know why I'm going to do this. Because what's the square root of 4a squared equal to? 2a. Oh, I like what I see. I hope you do as well. What we have is b squared minus 4ac, all underneath that square root on the top, over 2a. Almost done. I want to solve for x. What's my last step here going to be? Let's move the b over 2a to the other side. Minus b over 2a. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And if you want to simplify that just a little bit more, since the denominators are the same, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the quadratic formula.
Oh, wait, that was. Oh my god. There's a point to all this.
That's where it came from, dear friends. Here's your proof of why that formula works. It's just using the standard form, completing its square, finding the vertex form, and solving for x. Hello, quadratic formula. So, what I really want you to end off with this year is that, hey, this quadratic formula is a messy formula, but it actually mathematically works. And of course, now I'm saying to you, you know what? If you're ever asked to solve for x, when you have a quadratic, you can graph, you can factor, you can complete the square, But which method allows you to do all of those for sure? Is the quadratic formula. So if you turn to page 3, I'm saying to you, whenever you have an equation of this format, where you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, if you want to find x, just stick it into the formula. Okay? Now, before we end off today, I need you to write out the lyrics for the song. Okay? So, we just have enough time to do that. Let's quickly go ahead. And by the way, what's the song's tune?
Sing it first and we'll know.
Sing it first and you know? Remember? Mary had a little lamb? Mary had a little lamb. Good times from preschool. So, what's the first verse going to be? X equals to negative b. Right. You can memorize it or you can memorize the song. I like song. So, x equals to negative b. What's next?
Plus or minus?
Wait. I'm waiting, yeah. Plus or minus? Plus or minus. What? The square root of? Yeah. Wait. Okay, so x equals to negative b. Plus or minus the square root of. Johnson, what's next?
B squared minus 4ac.
B squared minus 4ac. That's good.
Divided by 2a.
Divided by 2a. Okay, you could do that. Or I'll say b squared minus 4ac. And then instead of divided by, all over 2a. Merry Christmas, everybody. Oh, wait a minute. That's not a Christmas song. Oh, too bad. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is where it comes from. Your homework, if you want to try it, is page 240. Okay, the stuff on page 240. 4 to 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, 17.